Hello, everybody. This is kind of an impromptu stream, but not going to be here for long. But I've read a bit of Hand of Thrawn 45. If you hear screaming, that's my brother. Can't do much about that. But I've read a couple fan fictions by Hand of Thrawn 45, and I've generally liked most of them that I've read so far. I haven't read anything post Crucible. But one thing I find absolutely phenomenal about what I'm sharing here today, in particular, is the fact that Hand of Thrawn 45, whatever his real name is, he's notorious for not liking the stories set after Unifying Force, which is completely okay and understandable. However, like a true EU author, if that has to be the story, why not make that as good as you can make it if it has to go that direction? So this story, for those of you who don't know, I will also have a review up in a couple weeks, or a week or two or something, of this story. But Star Wars Destinies was actually the first fan fiction that Hand of Thrawn 45 ever wrote. And basically, Timothy Zahn, back in the day, wanted to write a story about Mara, Luke, and Ben going on a big adventure together. He didn't get to do that due to reasons of Legacy of the Force. However, this story, even though it's not canon, does include that sort of story. Mara gets to see Talon Card again and Mazik again, it really focuses on Mara and Jason. It also reintroduces a character who appears in Legacy comics, being Kukrook from the Dark Times comics. And it is ultimately, so far, even though I've read The Twilight of the Jedi, and those are pretty up there as well, as those were finales to Republic Commando and Coruscant Knights, and combine them together in that finale. This, in particular, had me astounded because I know that this man does not appreciate the stories after Unifying Force. So the fact that he wrote something so good had me absolutely enthralled. So I just want to read that particular section with you. And if it sounds interesting, archived or whatever, and you find this, perhaps it's a fan fiction you'll be willing to check out. Anyway, here we go. Some trail, not memories, but the ethereal stream of the Force, led his mind from Veem to the woman with the pale tattoos to the man who stood behind her, the dark man with the Yusung Vong armor and tattooed chin who sat upon a dark throne and favored Alana with a twisted fatherly smile. He had sought that man for so long, alternatively believing and doubting in his very existence. Now it came to him, in a dizzying rush, the absolute knowledge that the dark man was not just real, but actively working to tear down everything he had known. He throws up his red lightsaber and fends off one blow, then another, as a man in spiked Yusung Vong armor, face hidden by a horrible animal mask, attacks with animal ferocity. A green lightsaber blazes in either hand. Each blow knocks him back another step across a jagged terrain of dry, blackened lava, while black smoke gushes through the sky overhead. A despair comes over him as he knows this is a fight he can never win. And then it was gone, and he was panting, and sweating, and struggling to keep from falling against the wall. He didn't know where that vision had come from. He never had it before. None of it. The colors of the lightsabers, the field of volcanic rock, made sense, but the Force had spoke to him again, and he knew with certainty that pitiful Pax Veem was an agent for the Dark Man. It struck him that Alana from his vision in the pool of knowledge may not have been Alana at all, but a clone brewed in a Sparty tube and delivered to the Dark Man as some prepared Force-powered acolyte. Maybe that was the point of the cloning program, to create a legion of dark side users to destroy the Jedi Order and bring ruin on the galaxy. But clone Sparty cylinders were notoriously prone to madness. Long dead Joro Sabaoth had been proof of that. Those tubes had been destroyed too, intentionally, but the same battle droids had been tasked with killing Jedi. The droid masters had surely been trying to hide some secret. Something was going on here. Something neither Jason nor Veem could understand. The cloning project had been wrecked for today, yes, but the Dark Man still lured, plotting ruin and corruption and harm to Alana, and he had to be stopped. Now, I'm not going to spoil this fanfiction for you, but I will say there are a lot of questions left unanswered in the Paul S. Kemp duology, which involves Jaden Core, and cloning, which, yeah, it's from the Thrawn era, but Thrawn's dead. As far as we know, there's no clone of Thrawn. So who's been working on this stuff since then? This comic kind of ties in the fact, well, maybe the one Sith had been using it. They found it and started working on it. That actually makes a lot of sense and would explain a lot of things about that duology. But that's a whole separate thing, just so you're not completely confused. But yeah, as I said, I'll have a review of this in like a week or so of this fan fiction. But like I said, I'm just amazed because this guy says that he hates Jason's arc after Unifying Force, but yet writes this scene. Which after I read all of it, I'm probably gonna end the stream because I mainly just wanted to show this to the world. Had to be stopped. There was no time to waste on Pax Vim. He could be hauled back to Alliance intelligence and interrogated in detail. Not that he could tell them anything useful. Then he would rot in jail for a very long time, which was all the Grand deserved. As Jason began to pull out of Vim's mind, he snagged one more thought. He places the data card into his pocket, the card that contains all the genetic information from Tino Kaw's blood sample, and Alana's, and Jason's own. And he thinks that now he has blackmail material to make him for life. And suddenly, Jason was himself again, standing in a dark hallway, staring at the Pax Vim as he struggled to hold himself upright against the door to a broken-down lift tube. Vim blinked all three eyes and said weakly, I give up, okay? Please, no more. No more. Give me the data card, Jason said. Vim blinked again. Give it to me, Jason shouted. He took 2 steps forward, and Vim flinched. His lightsaber was suddenly blazing in his hand, though he hadn't even meant to turn it on. Okay. Vim didn't even bother to deny it. Won't do good in prison anyway. He fished inside his jacket with one hand, then tossed a slim data card. Jason caught it in his free hand. He held it tightly between thumb and forefinger, and the sensation echoed Vim's own as he stroked that little chip and congratulated himself on his big score. Jason had the proof, but Pax Vim still knew. He couldn't share the information, but he could still talk about it in prison, and somehow, some way, that information could find its way to people who would harm Tino Kaw and Alana, be they greedy Hapan nobles or the Dark Man himself, assuming the Dark Man didn't already have his proof. He took another step closer to Vim, and Gran flinched again. He could force an aneurysm, as he ever to Chum, but what would be the point of that? He could try and wipe Vim's memory, as he had Ben Skywalker after the boy learned Alana's parentage, but memory wipes were always risky. Vim's memories, especially, were all jumbled together. He could hardly wipe out memory of Alana's parentage without wiping out most of the events on Kaush Sakar, and when their prized prisoner couldn't answer any useful questions, Kalinda's people would have harsh questions for the Jedi who captured him. So would Master Skywalker. The easiest thing would be to kill him. Jason resisted the thought. He hated killing people when he didn't have to. Even people like Vim who would destroy his family if they could. But to protect his family, he saw no other option. And nothing was more important than that. He took a breath and readied himself for what had to be done. Jason dropped the data chip on the floor and stomped on it again and again until his heel hurt and there was nothing left to salvage. He took one step closer, then another. He hefted his lightsaber so its green glow lit the underside of the Grand's snout. What are you doing? Vim gasped. I surrender. You are Jedi. You can't hurt me. I surrender. The words made Jason hesitate. Was he a Jedi? Really? He called himself one. But he ceased thinking of himself as being like other Jedi since his re-education under Vizier. Even before that, he'd never been comfortable member of the Jedi Order his uncle had been building. He always wanted to be something more, even if he never understood what. He wanted it so badly, left his everything behind for 5 whole years while he went searching for special knowledge and purpose, only to discover them in the most terrible way. No, he said so softly it could barely be heard over the lightsaber's hum. I'm not. Vim blinked. Then, what are you? A teacher, a student, a traitor, a solo. All of those things, and none of them. Right now, he was a father protecting his child, not just because she was his child, but because the fate of the whole galaxy rested with her. The Force had spoken to him and assigned him that task. It had brought him pain and would bring him greater pain to come. But pain was another thing that he had learned about from Vajir. Pain was a teacher, a tool, and a master. Pain was his destiny. And in the end, pain and destiny could never be escaped. They can only be embraced. You know what I am, Jason said grimly. Only you. Understanding lit in Veem's eyes. Understanding and strange acceptance. Jason flicked his wrist. Green light flashed, sizzled. There was a hard thud as Veem's head hit the deck. Slowly, the rest of his body sank to join it. Jason stood over the body for a long time. He didn't feel regret or satisfaction, but a gnawing emptiness. He waited for the Force to touch him, as it had before, and tell him that the murder he just committed had been right. It told him nothing. Finally, he shut off his lightsaber, turned his back on the body of his victim, and went to help the people he loved. And that was an amazing scene from Hand of Thrawn 45's fanfic. And again, I'm just impressed because I know the guy hates this stuff, and yet he wrote a super compelling scene in this story with Jason. That helps, again, and this book, or this little fanfiction, if nothing else, proves to me how amazing like a Jude Watson type series with Ben and Jason could be after Dark Nest and before Legacy of the Force. It's 3 years out of the 5 in between Dark Nest and Legacy of the Force. So, you know, there's like 3 other years there, or 4 other years there that you could explore something with him and Ben. But yeah, it just had me really appreciate the story. It may not be canon. It's not a part of my timeline. I don't do headcanon. I don't approve of that. You know, it's always going to be some possible timeline, you know, that this guy decided to write, you know, because he's not the authority or anything. And I'm still advocating for more EU stories. But this really shows the potential here. I haven't read his post-Crucible stuff, as I mentioned at the beginning. But it was a really good fanfic. It gave the Timothy Zahn idea of having Mara, Ben, and Luke on a big adventure. You know, especially important to do before the next series. It gives a lot more, you know, not more development for Mara, but gives her some more time to shine because of the next series, and gives Jason more motivation and growth for why he ultimately goes the direction he goes in Legacy of the Force. Also, big EU thing, kind of fanfiction-y, but it's kind of John Ostrander's fault, because in the Legacy comics, Kukrook is still alive in those comics, and he's just a part of the Order now. We never actually get a story where he just pops back up again. So this story kind of explains how Luke and everyone met him. They meet him in this story, and he has a tragic backstory after the events of Dark Times, which we didn't get to see. And he's going to, you know, kind of travel like Jason did for a bit, not to explore the unknown stuff, but to kind of just see what the galaxy's like, you know, on his own terms, since he's been out of the loop for like 60 years. And then at some point he rejoins the Jedi Order, at least according to Hand of Thrawn 45, of course. But overall, it was his first fan fiction, but it was pretty decent. I also read one called Attrition, which focused on Pelion. And that one was also splendid. But yeah, so if that little excerpt interested you at all, then I suggest you go check out the fan fiction for yourself. You can find it on fanfiction.net. It's Star Wars Destinies by Hand of Thrawn 45. I enjoyed it, especially the Jason bits, which is super ironic because I know the guy doesn't like it, but he made some really good stuff with that premise, so it was fantastic. But also, I'll just mention it here. I'll talk about this in my video that will come out in like a week. But the One Sith being also included, I thought was really good. At first, I was like, I don't know if I like this. I don't care if it's a fanfiction. This is a little But then they kind of are tying things into the Paulus Kemp duology, where, you know, there was all this cloning stuff, and there's a huge mystery behind that, because it's like, well, it may have been a Thrawn era thing, but Thrawn's dead, so who's working on this stuff? And it makes a lot of sense that it would be the One Sith. And I have a prediction now that if it is, how it is that I think it's going, when I eventually get to the post-Crucible stories written by him, I imagine they'll end up using cloning as a means to make a copy of Ashrod. So that way Luke can fight him and kill him, and then, everybody thinks it's all peachy good, so that could explain why no one's hunting him down in Legacy, or, why Luke never stopped him. Anyway, that was just a little excerpt. Just want to share that because I think it's a really good scene. And may not be canon, but I really like the scene. It's a really good scene with Jason. And so yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I didn't want to stay here long. It's kind of an impromptu thing, but I shared this with Marcel and Brennan earlier, and a couple days ago. I thought it was really good. So, but anyway, I'm gonna go now. Hope you all have a good one, and I'll see you next time. I should have a video up in like an hour or less about certain encounters again for the for 100th time that I'm talking about it. But this will be my non-spoiler review for you guys of supernatural encounters. So that'll be up in like an hour. So if you want more in-depth stuff, I got my thoughts videos. But anyway, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching, the two people who did. Bye-bye.